We are live on Proline TV for Pigskin's Friday program. And this is the last program of the week where we get an opportunity to give our analysis and picks as the weekend begins in pro and college football. So welcome to the show. Jim Feist and Mark Lawrence are here. So the three partners at Proline TV are all together at last here on our show on Friday. How's it going, guys?
I'm doing well. I understand Jim's doing better. I'm glad to hear that. Nice to see Jim back in the saddle again.
Yeah, yes. I feel, yesterday was a hard day, travel and doctor visits and stuff, but we got through it. I'm a little tired, but I'm more focused on winning this week because last week was not a good week, but we do get those. And I figured this way, since I've been doing this 6 decades, I probably have had 10 bad weeks every year, losing weeks. So you figure that's 100 per decade, which is 600 over 6 decades. But that's not bad because there's a lot more good weeks than bad weeks, and I've always made a profit. And I'm sure Mark could say the same thing.
I'd love to say the same thing. I would love if they played 52 weeks a year and then you only had 10 bad weeks. That would be really, really ideal. Right.
Well, I play 52 weeks a year because I do all the sports.
I understand.
Yeah.
All right. So let's get cooking. The first game, and we're going to do NFL, of course, here in the first segment. Then Mark and I will close out the show with college football. So we got 3 games that we're going to talk about. And we're going to begin with a matchup of backup quarterbacks in Minnesota between Cincinnati and the Vikings. Jake Browning, of course, had an opportunity to get into the action last week. Might have actually helped save the Bengals season. It wasn't a perfect performance, but it was a winning performance. And now he's going to take over for the Bengals for the next few months. And for the Vikings, they have another injury situation with J.J. McCarthy. So Carson Wentz gets to take over. And Jim, this might be the worst thing for J.J. McCarthy because Carson Wentz is fully capable of pulling a Donald and going out there and having a tremendous couple of games, however long JJ's out, and making it really tough on the coach to decide what to do and when to bring JJ back.
From what I've seen with JJ, he is not ready for the NFL. That's just I don't want to knock the kid. Obviously, he has physical talents. I believe he's probably very smart. But the NFL is different than college. And in college, he had the advantage of always having, or 90% of the time, having the best team. And he's always playing against deficient players. That is not the case in the NFL. He has not looked good in 7 out of 8 quarters. And I'm talking about bad. Then now, Carson Wentz has had an up and down career. He's had moments where he looked pretty damn good, and other times you say, who the hell is this guy? Now, so in my estimation, taking JJ off the field, I'd even make up an injury to take him off the field and say, okay, he has an injury, so let's sit him and bring in somebody, because I think it's an upgrade to go to Wentz, even though Wentz is totally a question mark. We don't know what you're going to get from this guy, but he at least knows how to play football at this level because he's had success. He's also had a lot of failures. On the other side, Cincinnati, who is not as good a roster, who does not have as good a head coach, who does not have as good a defense, comes in with Browning. Now, Browning has a history of reasonable success. And last week, he had reasonable success. Couple interceptions, yes, but he did move the ball down the field. This is a very difficult game to handicap. I would, as I look at it, I would probably take the team that had a quarterback in there last week who played with the starters for a big part of the game and had some success than a real question mark with Wentz. I have no idea where this guy is in preparation with this team. I don't know that they ever plan to use him. But taking 3 points with an underdog that has some capability, I would have to go with Cincinnati, but as a real shot in the dark. It's definitely not going to be one of my big plays.
Well, Mark, we really like the backup quarterback coming in and giving juice to the team, at least in that first game. And I think I think this one and the Washington game with Marcus Mariota has that written all over it, that I expect the team to rally around the veteran quarterback.
Yeah, and it usually happens that first game, as you mentioned, Greg, when they get that opportune time. The players usually rally around that quarterback as well. And I agree with Jim. And there's a lot of question marks about Carson Wentz coming into this football game. But I will say this, that in his career, in his tenure, he's gone up against Cincinnati 11 times. He's only lost 1 time on the scoreboard.
Whoa.
Yes. Done really, really rather well.
11 times?
Yes.
Wow. Okay. That's a lot.
9-1-1 straight up and 9-2 to the spread against the Bengals. Now, you want to compare quarterbacks. You can look at Browning here, who looked pretty good in relief last week, but I'm a little bit concerned about what he's done. He's only had 7 starts. People don't realize that. People think he's played a whole lot more than he really hasn't. But the 3 times that he's gone up against teams that were coming off losses, he lost all 3 of those football games, or at least the Bengals lost all 3 of those football games. So I'm going to give a slight quarterback edge here to Wentz for the experience angle, the fact that maybe he feels a little bit more comfortable. But what I like from my database in this game is that when these 2 teams have met the last 13 times, the home team has won 12 of those games straight up on the scoreboard and has gone 11-1 against the spread. It's a homer series, been a homer series. I'm going to look at Carson Wentz in this football game and see if he can't some way, somehow resurrect his career. And as Jim says, maybe keep J.J. McCarthy on the bench.
Yeah, I think it's going to take like 1 or 2 humongous games from Wentz in order to do that. Because look, the Vikings are fully committed to McCarthy, and they're going to play him unless Wentz comes out there and just looks so good that they just can't. And that's what will be interesting. I'm sure they're hoping that's what the case is. It'll be a tough decision either way, I'm sure, for the coach and everybody who committed to McCarthy. But that's a tough decision they want to make.
Well, let me give you a side note on that. Okay, they committed to McCarthy. He's a young guy, not a lot of experience at the NFL. There's a lot of very veteran players on the Minnesota Vikings. Now, every player in the NFL wants to get to the Super Bowl and win a championship. That's a given. They all want to, first of all, get to the playoffs. If the team gets to the point where they say, hey, speaking of McCarthy now, this kid can't play at this level yet. He needs more time. They're going to get kind of pissed off because they're losing. Not every player has a lifetime to be in the NFL. They have a limited window of physical ability where their age doesn't take over or injury doesn't take over. So,
yeah, and I think we would see that. I think what would happen is in that scenario, Jim, let's say Wentz has a couple of big games. McCarthy's ready. He comes in, doesn't play very good for a game or 2. I don't think O'Connell's going to be that stupid. He's going to go right back to Wentz. It's going to be it's sort of like what we saw last year with Canales and the Panthers. He started young. He was just playing really bad. So he goes to what's his name? Dalton. Dalton plays. Then Dalton gets hurt. Young goes back in, and he plays great. And maybe that's what JJ needs. Maybe JJ needs to sit down and take a little bit of an observation from that point of view. But I could see that definitely being the case, Jim. I don't think he's stupid. I think he understands. But I also know that he wants McCarthy to succeed, and he loves McCarthy. And he's with him. Yeah, we're not.
He may love McCarthy, but you have to go to the offseason and look at what Minnesota was doing about acquiring another quarterback. They were in the market to get Aaron Rodgers.
No, they weren't.
They asked.
No, they weren't. No. No, they weren't. No, they weren't.
Okay,
They
well,
had
that's
nothing to do with Aaron Rodgers.
Well, they
Nothing.
were looking for somebody. I don't think that they were 100% sold on McCarthy to begin with.
Well, they wanted a backup. They wanted a veteran backup.
Well, totally.
Yeah, not a starter. They wanted a veteran backup insurance policy.
They got a veteran backup in Wentz that nobody really wanted.
And that's a surprise. Aren't you guys surprised that Carson Wentz was available for so long?
Well, there's probably a reason, I'm sure there's a reason.
He played in Indianapolis, I think, most recently, and he absolutely, he was horrible. He made some of the worst decisions I've ever seen a quarterback make. There's a big question about where this guy's head's at, and this is a big mystery here. Not one where I'm going to put my money on it because I don't like betting on mysteries. I like to have an edge.
Well, those games that you saw Carson Wentz look so bad in, Jim, he bowed out of the Colts and found his way to the Pines, to the bench, and he went 3-11 or 3-8 to the spread his last 11 football games. So, obviously he struggled, and it's a question of whether or not they can resurrect him at this late stage of his career. I think you've got here in a head coach in Kevin O'Connell. He's a quarterback whisperer.
Yep.
And he is rapidly in love with J.J. McCarthy. He's going to do everything he can to make this kid a winner if he's capable. Yeah. And I think O'Connell sees that he's capable. I know that when he came out of high school, he was a 5-star recruit. He's got a ton of ability, but maybe the maturation process hasn't caught up with him yet. I don't know what the issue is here. Maybe this time off is probably the best thing that could have happened to him.
Very well could
back
be.
and watching.
Yeah, very well could be.
All right. Next game on the list is a big game in the AFC West early this season already. The Chargers playing all three of their division opponents to start the season. They get the Broncos this time. And I got to admit, I'm watching the game on Sunday with the Colts and Denver, and the missed field goal. And because there was the two other games were really close at the end of the game, I quickly switched, and I didn't realize the game that the Colts had won the game until Monday morning. So that was a terrible loss for Denver, a terrible loss because they just gave the game away. And I thought the Colts were giving the game away. I thought that the coaching decision to be that I don't know what you want to call it, nervous about turning the ball over, too cautious, whatever you want to call it, to allow a kicker like he's Aubrey from Dallas to say, okay, we're going to settle for a 60-yard field goal, and I feel pretty good about that. And obviously the kicker goes up there and misses it by like 5 yards. And then they get lucky with the penalty called. So what does this do to the Denver Broncos? Because they could have been 2-0. Now they're 1-1. Now they're going to go to LA and take on a streaking Charger team that's looking to go 3-0, Jim.
I'll tell you, this is really, you look at this league, the Raiders, I think the Raiders showed you who they are the other night. It was a pretty bad effort. The Chargers, if they go to 3-0 and Kansas City goes to 1-2 and Denver goes to 1-2, man, that's a big hole to dig out of. How the hell did they put 3 division games back to back to back to start the season for the Chargers?
They didn't play again until after Thanksgiving, Jim, in a division game. Unbelievable.
Who put this schedule together? This is ridiculous. It's crazy. This is obviously we all know the Chargers don't get a lot of home advantage, playing in LA. They haven't built that up yet. But if they start to win like this and keep it going, the fans will show up and they will support them. But this is a tough spot. Herbert looks great. Their running game's a little questionable, but they're playing hard and they have a hell of a coach. This guy, Harbaugh, boy, he's magic. Wherever he goes, something great happens. And you can't knock the Denver coach at all, but they did squeak by in the first game. They weren't that impressive. They did stay close with Indianapolis, but that was on the road, and Indianapolis has have a little bit of magic going on so far this year. And then the lucky missed field goal. I don't know what Steichen was thinking about running the ball into the line, setting up a 60-yard field goal with a guy that can't get the ball 60 yards. But anyway, that's him. This is now a different question. This is I'm going to say that even though I can't figure out what to do with a -3, I'd probably lean to Denver, but I'm not going to play it. But I'm going to probably go over the total. I think this game is going to have more points than people figure it out. They know they need. This is a monster game for these two teams, especially Denver, who's looking at 1 and 2 and 3 games, a couple games back of the Chargers. Monster game for them.
Yeah, they can't afford really, in essence, to start out 1 and 2 and look up the Chargers, and basically give them a clear-cut lead in the division race. I think it's really critically important for Denver to show up for this contest. You got a head coach here in Sean Payton that's done really well in his career in division games. He's really, really good. He's also really, really good when he's off a loss and he takes on when he's off a loss and the team he's playing has a better record than he has. 14-3 of the spread in his career, off a loss with the inferior record. That's Sean Payton. Kind of gets his team up for football games that maybe perhaps if he has the inferior record, he had no right being in, but he does. He's a really, really good head coach. That's the reason they paid him all the money they did. And correct me if I'm wrong, Greg, here, but are these not the 2 highest paid coaches in the National Football League?
I don't really dig too deep into contracts like that, but they sure are up there, no question about it. And not only has Peyton done really well, as you mentioned, Mark, as far as division opponents, but check out Jim Harbaugh since he's been back with the Chargers.
Oh, yeah.
6-2 straight up, 7-0-1 against the spread versus division opponents. He's already off to a 1-0 start this year. Excuse me, a 2-0 start this year, straight up and against the spread with those 2 wins to start the season. And that's the reason why I'm just going to stick with the Chargers, because while they're on this high, while everything's working out for them, I'm just gonna roll with them. I picked them last week, so I didn't take the first week, but I picked them last week, and I'm just gonna do it again this week. I'm just gonna kind of ride this, especially in the division, the way Harbaugh is going right now. And it's not just that; it's Denver. There's something not clicking just right with Denver. They gave up so many points last week. This is one of the better defensive teams in the NFL, and they just did not come to play defensively last week. Look at the game against Tennessee. That game went down to the fourth quarter, down to the final possession or two against the Titans. Bo Nix did not have a good game in that first game. He was better in week 2. So there's still something that's just not right, which is normal. This is the NFL. It's the first couple of weeks of the season. I'm not saying Denver's not going to be okay, but the Chargers do seem to be okay right now. And so because of that, and this is a home opener too for the Chargers. Not that the crowd's going to mean anything, but just keep that in mind too.
Greg, your great points there. The Denver's defense, who a lot of people said this is the best defense in football, they have not looked like the best defense in football in these 2 games. And these Chargers are going to put a lot of pressure on them. You might be right. And now I was talking about a 3-point line. There's quite a few 2.5-point lines out there too. So you're not even laying a full field goal. And there's also the other possibility, you could always play a game like this on a money line. So I see your point.
Well, you talk about this Denver defense being a little bit soft to begin the season. And it is a surprise, no question about it. But take a look at what happened to them and who they went up against. They went up against Indiana Jones last week. And boy, oh boy, is he putting up the numbers. I think he's the most impressive player to start the season here thus far in the league. They put up over 400 yards in 2 of their first 2 football games. I think things settled down here for Denver a little bit here. This is going to be, I think, more of a chess match than it will be a wide open track meet in this football game. I know Sean Payton knows and realizes he has to do that. And I believe you'll also find Harbaugh acquiescing and playing that grunt running football game as well. I see a low scoring affair here, and put a gun to my head, I'd take the points with the Broncos.
The Chargers running game, Mark, hasn't been that.
No.
It just hasn't. You would think Jim Harbaugh would run the ball and run the rock a lot, but they haven't been that successful doing it.
No.
And I think that'll change. I really, truly do. We talk about that one great stat that I kind of get addicted to in the National Football League, and that's the team that has the most rushing attempts usually wins the games. And nowhere to be found in the top 5 is Jim Harbaugh, and his teams are almost always at the top of that particular category. And teams who are in the top 5 of the category are always in the playoffs and always make a run. So I think that's going to change between here and maybe after Thanksgiving when they play their next division game. I think you're going to see a little better running game out of the Chargers.
Yeah, at some point, they've got to get the rookie going. Confidence, whatever it is, the offensive line. And we keep talking about the offensive line. And a lot of times we zero in on pass protection. But what's also important is being able to open holes so you could run the football. And they haven't been able to do that. And that's also a big reason why they've missed Slater. So they haven't missed Slater so far in the passing game, but they're sure missing him in the running game. And so Harbaugh, I guess his strategy right now is, hey, Herbert's never had this many good receivers to work with before. We've got we've got a rookie running back. Let's maybe try to throw the ball to set up the running game. Maybe that's what he's trying to do. And like you said, Mark, maybe it takes even a half a season. And at that point, when everybody's zeroing in on the Chargers passing game, maybe that will open up the running game more. But I just don't see it happening overnight.
Real good observation. Yes.
All right, let's go ahead and go to the last game on our schedule here. The Chiefs and the Giants, a battle of 0-2 teams. So this is a Sunday night game, not a Monday night game. So this is when most people watch Sunday night football, the biggest game of the week. And next Monday night, they're going to be ESPN gets the 0-3 Jets against the 0-3 Dolphins. So we got winless Sunday night football one week and winless Monday night football the next week. So involving New York teams. So in this one, Jim, the Chiefs have started off 0-2 straight up and against the spread, but they have lost to the Chargers and the Eagles. So now they're playing the Giants. And we don't know which Giant team we're going to get, but I think we kind of figure which one we probably will get more of. The more of the Washington Giant team than the one that we saw last week against the Cowboys.
Yeah, the Giants are not going to have the Dallas defense to play around with this weekend. That's a different animal. Kansas City's played. How do you start the season any tougher than what they have? The Chargers and then the Eagles. I mean, my goodness, that's a tough way to start. And they're not a fully put together team yet. Their wide receiver issues. Kelsey is, I'm not sure what kind of level of play we're going to see from him. Obviously his last year. But I don't know about laying 6 points with them, but and the Giants bombs away Russell Wilson, the moon ball, but Dallas plays the defense. Well, this guy's going to throw the moon ball, so let's let the receivers get behind us, and then we'll try to catch up with them. I mean, that's whoever coaches that defense needs to go back to high school and maybe even grade school, because that was horrible. But that's not going to happen. So, but I do think you're going to see a very strong effort from Kansas City. I hate to say this because everybody in the public's going to say this. Oh, Kansas City can't go 0-3. Well, yeah, they can go 0-3 because they're already 0-2. I don't think that's going to happen, though. I think Kansas City wins this game. The only question is by how much. In the world before that we used to talk about, let me get rid of this thing, making noise. We would tease Kansas City, because it's a great teaser option, knocking them from 6 down to pick. Great teaser option. But now we got to be careful about the lines that the bookmakers are charging on teasers, which used to go be even money on a 6-point teaser. Some places are minus 135 on a 6-point teaser. So you got to look at that. But if you shop around, some books are a little bit more reasonable than other ones. But that's Kansas City to me will win the game. The total will probably go over, because I don't think the Giants are going to try to run the ball down Kansas City's throat. I don't think that Russell Wilson's going to get that back there and throw bombs, which might end up in interceptions. But I don't think too many of the moon balls will connect like they did against Dallas.
Yeah, they're going to take their GPS markers away from that defensive backfield there. That was pathetic, as you mentioned, watching him launch those balls like that, and not to see a defensive back anywhere in the picture. It was incredible, and I don't think you'll see that with Kansas City here. To your point, Jim, about going 0-3, only one team has ever made the playoffs that opened up 0-3, and that was Kansas City, who did just that. And I'm sure Andy Reid's going to remind everybody that we cannot even think about the possibility of going 0-3 if for no other reason they have Baltimore up on decks next week.
Oh, boy.
How about that? I mean, my goodness, you talk about a game that they need like blood. This has to be it here this particular week. Then I look at the Giants, and I open up my database, and what do I see? The Giants in their home opening games, last 13 years, they've won once. They've covered once.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
The fans must love that.
Yeah. It's sort of the track that they've been on here a lot of lately, the New York Giants. But I can only look one way in the game, but I'm with Jim. I'm not real comfortable with this number where it is here right now, but I certainly could not make a case for the Giants in this contest.
All right. So before I let you go, Jim, give us a pick. Any pick you want, any way you want. Let us know what you got for the viewers.
Well, I think the most obvious game to me, and I hate to be this obvious, but sometimes you have to be. Dallas has an unstoppable offense.
Oh, here comes the over.
Yeah, you're right. and Chicago's defense is not that good. The other thing is, I'm not a big Caleb Williams fan. Okay, I'm kind of down on Caleb, and I'm down on McCarthy. So you can probably tell that. But if anybody you can score on anybody, it has to be Dallas. So I think both teams are going to put up points. I think you're looking at 50. I think it goes way over 50.
All right, there you go. Cowboys have now moved into a 1.5 favorite role, and we'll see if that sticks.
I do have to add one thing though. I mean, we're recording this here. We got
it's actually live. We are recording it.
We have to check the weather in all these games that are outdoors. I mean, weather will make a big difference in outcomes of games. So please check the weather on Sunday morning for all the Sunday games.
All right, Jim. So we'll be looking out tonight. We're going to be posting the interview, the video you produced with Victor. So what do the viewers have to look forward to with that? That's going to be posted later tonight.
Well, I'll tell you. Well, first of all, Victor is a pleasure to work with. I mean, he is so prepared. He knows what the hell he's talking about. He's got great statistics, great insight. He delivers it really well. Victor's shows are excellent. So I strongly suggest you watch them.
Well, you got a work ethic that's second to none, Jim, as you could tell. We don't ever worry about Victor around the office. If there's anything that has to be done, I don't even have to tell him what needs to be done. He knows it and he does it. That's just instinctively the type of person that he is. And I would love to get him back on our ATS podcast, but unfortunately, the poor guy only has one day off, and it's that particular day. So, if we end up toward the end of the season, maybe moving the ATS podcast back to Wednesday per se, I don't know if it ends up happening. We'll see, Victor. But at least for now, Jim, you have the pleasure of working with Victor King, and I'm sure you enjoy it.
And I totally enjoy it. Absolutely.
Good.
All right, Jim. We'll see you again next week. You and I will recap the weekend on Monday's show as usual. Looking forward to it.
Good luck, everybody.
Jim, have a great weekend. Be good, guy. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All right. So again, that's Jim Feist. But before we move over to college football, John Putnam wanted to get our opinion on the Atlanta-Carolina game. Do you have an opinion on that game at all, Mark? That's a tricky one.
Which game is that? I'm sorry. Greg?
Atlanta and Carolina. Because Atlanta, I believe, is still like about a 4.5 point favorite in that one, maybe even 5. And the money line was a little tempting to me because there weren't a whole lot of money line plays I like this week, and I only say that because so again it was like 2-1. It's a home opener for Carolina. Their backs are against the wall, and I do have this trend from the Playbook magazine. Carolina has covered 11 straight as dogs of 5 or more. So remember, it's 5. If it's 5 or more, when they take on an opponent off of an upset win. So again, it's 11 straight that the Panthers have covered when they take on teams coming off an upset, as long as they're a dog of 5 or more. So what do you think about the game?
I marked the Atlanta Falcons early on in the football season, and I was going to ride this football team, and I have. I've been on them the first 2 football games. The first game was a loss that I felt I should have won. Second game, we got the money with them. What's proven to be surprising to me thus far this year, they're the number 2 team in the country, or I should say in the NFL, in rushing attempts per game. They're controlling the ball at the line of scrimmage, which is keeping them in football games and opens it all up for Michael Penix, who I think is going to end up having an outstanding football season here. The hard thing for me is they do change roles here. They go from a straight up underdog winner now to a road favorite, and that's really probably the most quantum leap that you can ask of teams in the National Football League, to pull the rug on somebody and then have to take out onto the road and lay points the next week. Never very successful doing that. And you've got a division game here you have to do that in. So I'm going to lean Atlanta here because I'm on this Falcon run here. But am I going to dig deep? I'm not going to dig deep because of the situation that's all involved in the game.
Okay, so now let's turn our attention to college football and games that we did not talk about on the Playbook ATS podcast show. And that's what we're going to do each week, including the NFL games. So let's start first of all with a very big SEC game, Mark. And this is between Auburn and Oklahoma. This is one of those fun games that I enjoy about college football, is seeing Jackson Arnold return to Oklahoma, where he was a big-time recruit, and he just didn't play well. It was not a good situation for him there. And this is both teams, both situations with their quarterbacks is why I like the portal, because these are good stories with the portal. With Mateer going to Oklahoma, he would have wasted away at Washington State. Instead, he goes to Oklahoma. He's got a chance for special things. And Arnold was doing nothing at Oklahoma, and he goes to Auburn, and just in one offseason, for whatever reason, Hugh Freeze has got him cooking. And Arnold is nice little dual threat, kind of like Mateer. They're both, dual threats. Mateer's a better passer, which is why he'll be a better pro prospect. I don't even think Arnold would be a pro prospect. But Mateer's got some passing ability, and Oklahoma all of a sudden has to seriously be looked at as a national championship contender now. They've done everything they've asked to do. We know they can play defense under Venables, but now they can also play a little offense thanks to Mateer.
I just wonder who has the psyche in this football game. Is it Oklahoma for Arnold leaving the program, given the fact that maybe he bailed out on them? Or is it Arnold going back at Oklahoma, maybe to show them that they give up on him a little bit too early? We're going to find that out. But, what I see in the game here is something that's jumped off the page to me this season here, and it's going to continue to keep doing so as the season goes on until it doesn't. And I'm talking about SEC teams that dress up as underdogs. They've only done that 6 times this year, and they've cashed 4 of the 6 times doing just that. In fact, let me check that. 8-2 overall this season, 10 times. 6-0 they are when they're coming off a win. So SEC dogs off a win this season, 6-0 to the number. That would be Auburn in the football game. I know there's a big love affair going on with John Mateer now. He is probably arguably the most highly recruited quarterback in the portal, and he's showing that the reason why he should have been just that. I think he went into the perfect situation here at Oklahoma. They're beginning to build some momentum here, and they've gone from nowhere now into the conversation, into the Southeast Conference conversation anyway. But I'm going to look at Hugh Freeze, the dog, and the Southeast Conference dog in the game like this. You got a battle of 2 quality teams. Both are going to be bowl teams by season's end. Give me the points.
Yeah, that's the way I'm going to go as well. And to answer your question, I think it's going to favor Arnold because I look, he went through hell last year. I mean, the fan base didn't want him anymore. And anytime you have a big time recruit that comes in and fails, that's what's going to happen. You're going to go, I'm sick of this guy. It's usually either the coach or the player. Well, the coach stayed. So somebody has to go. It was the player. And so I don't think it's going to be one of those things where players are going to feel like he left the team. So, and in that respect, I think Arnold now comes back and he knows what that fan base did to him. He knows what he was, everything that was talked about in a negative fashion. And he's going to want to kind of give it back. So now that doesn't mean they're going to win. It just means that he'll have that kind of edge on his side, which is what I led off with. This is what I love about college football. These types of, usually it's rivalries, but these situations too make it really fun. And that's why I'm going to take Auburn as well. I think they're a really good upset pick too, if you want to go that route. I think they're one of the better 6 or 7 point money line plays of the week. In other words, that 2-1 mark. I think there are a handful of those this week that are pretty good if you want to take a look at that. And I talked about some of that on my show on Wednesday. We have a link in the description of this video with that. Now, there's one trend that does favor Oklahoma, though. They're 8-2 against the spread in their last 10 as a home favorite, including 1-0 in that spot this year. Keep in mind, Oklahoma beat Auburn last year in Auburn. So Auburn may have a little bit of payback here in this one. So, yeah, I'm going to take the 7 in this one and maybe even sprinkle a little bit on the money line as well.
I agree with you, and I think this is a worthy money line type play. I know you love the money lines, Greg, especially in this price range, maybe even longer or deeper, but I think Auburn does check that box.
Now we're going to stick with one team from the SEC. Another is from the ACC. And that is a rivalry in Florida between the Florida Gators and the Miami Hurricanes. And it's not a year-to-year rivalry because these two teams don't play every year, but they did play last year, which was nice to see. Not that Florida fans were glad to see it, because Miami went into Florida and just annihilated them on their home floor week 1. And so, yeah, you could look at it as Florida's got a little payback. The other way you could look at it is, well, hey, Miami, I think, is a better team than they were last year. And they blew out Florida, and maybe they just have the matchup number. Who knows? So there's a couple different ways to look at it. Immediately, Mark, when I look at this game and I see, now it has moved up, and I'm not surprised, because it was 7.5. I see it's here, it's 8.5, because it just felt that the way Florida had played this year and the way Miami had played this year, considering Miami was at home, I thought they would be a little bit more than a 7-point favorite.
I think there's a lot of respect here for the Southeast Conference coming the dog.
Another dog. Yeah.
There's another game, Southeast Conference coming a dog this week. That's 8-2 so far this year. Get you a little bit of a revenge here for Florida. Sprinkle a little bit of that salt onto this salad, if you will, per se. I think there's a lot to like about Florida in this game. Their backs are beginning to be pushed and shoved up against the wall. They're 1-2 off back-to-back losses. And Miami has had, they've just been living in the fast lane. Carson Beck has really been the real deal since he come over to the program. And he's showing why he was a starting quarterback at Georgia. But you look at the opposition. One of those wins was against Bethune-Cookman. Okay, now they did beat Notre Dame, and they beat a feisty South Florida football team. In fact, covered the spread in that game. And South Florida had been the new darling, the new underdog darling in college football, and they've done it handily. And the stats has Miami of Florida, and I can't poo-poo any of that stuff. Now, does Miami of Florida have a bigger game on deck next with Florida State?
A couple of weeks, yep. They got a bye, and then they're at Tallahassee.
Yeah.
Yep.
But you said the key there is in a couple of weeks.
Yep.
It's not next week, like they're peeking ahead past this particular football game. But I like the fact that Billy Napier is up against the wall. He's on a hot seat, and the temperature just keeps rising and rising on him. They can't do anything about it because they can't fire him. It just costs them an arm and a leg to do just that. But so they're going to live it out with him, and the players that he brought into the program are going to end up coming to support him as well. Lagway had a terrible game last week, and I see the team rallying around him this particular week. I like Florida in the upset here.
Oh, going with the upset. I can't do the upset because I do think that this is a different Miami team. Not to say that they can't lose this game and then run the table. They could do that, but I think that would be tough. Here's the thing I do have to question or wonder. When your quarterback goes out there, and he's a young quarterback, and he doesn't have a lot of experience in winning games. He's just a young quarterback, and there's hope that he's going to be here for a couple of years, and there's going to be a lot of success with him. But what happens in a situation when that young quarterback goes out there and your team is busting their ass the entire game against LSU, and this guy keeps throwing interceptions? I mean, it would probably drive you crazy. So I think that's going to be very interesting to find out how they do respond. as far as, if he does make any mistakes in this game and the team puts him in position to possibly, maybe put points on the board or whatever the case may be. So he really has to play well today on Saturday. There's just no question about it. He's got to get his confidence going. The team needs to feel good about him. And you mentioned Napier, Mark, and I found this obviously in the Playbook magazine. This is really Billy Napier's. This is where he feels his most comfortable. Billy Napier coach teams are 7-2 straight up, 7-1-1 against the spread when they take on a team, and they are a losing team. So this goes back to his Sun Belt days, and this also includes here at Florida. So whenever Billy Napier's teams are sub 500, they're a losing team. This is when his teams seem to play their best. So,
and that's the sign of what the coach can do for a team. He's probably, that's maybe, like you said, Greg, maybe his best role is getting his team up for teams like this, like opponents like this, especially when all the negative press has hit this program here right now. This is a game, like I'm saying, I'm not going to be surprised if Florida wins this football game.
Yeah,
Miami's going to stub their toe somewhere sooner or later. They just can't continue the Cinderella type season that they've started out with here. And if it ends, it usually ends with an opponent like Florida. Yeah,
that has been the bugaboo for this coaching staff. A couple of other trends to keep an eye on. Miami 8-0-2 against the spread when they take on a non-conference team, and they're at home as the favorite of less than 7. But again, this odds have now went from 7 to 8.5. So it looks like it's not going to go back down to less than 7 at this point. And then the one that does say take Florida is that let's keep in mind that even though they've lost their last 2 games to South Florida and to LSU, both straight up and against the spread, they lost by a combined 12 points. So when you're getting 8.5, I think that's meaningful, whether or not you want to go with the upset or just take the points.
I think it's a big value play, personally.
All right. Next one, our third of 3. Let's go turn our attention to the Big Ten. And yeah, this is a very tricky matchup between Michigan and Nebraska. And initially, I will say this, when I saw this game, I actually thought Nebraska was going to be a 1.5 point favorite. I didn't think Michigan would be. But I understand it's Michigan, and Nebraska is Nebraska. Then And I actually thought that, this is probably going to be a good spot for Nebraska. It's about time. Matt Rule had his signature win, and this looks like this is a good situation for it to occur. But then I looked at the history of these two teams, and it really got me concerned with taking Nebraska. If you look at it here, look at these big ones. And this one, and again, 99% of what I tell you all year to the viewers, everything you see me reading comes from the Playbook magazine right here. All right. So we'll reference this every week. You could still purchase this. So not sure. Don't think just because it's the season began that you can't get a hold of one of those. There's 90% of the season left. So it's worth it. You'll get it. You can get it in a couple of days, or you can just go down to the bookstore, Barnes and Nobles, pick it up. All right. So check this out. Nebraska has lost 27 straight games versus AP top 25 teams. That dates back 9 years ago. 0-27. And then also Michigan has beaten Nebraska straight up and against the spread the last 4 times by a 167-49 margin. And then to top it off, when both of these teams are coming off games in which they score 35 or more points, Michigan has covered 8 straight on the road, and Nebraska is just 1-7 against the spread.
There's something about this Michigan team, Greg, that to me, they just don't. I can't swallow the fact that they're a top 25 team. They were choppy last year. They had 5 losses last year. They lost this football season against Oklahoma in a game in which they were soundly out-yarded in the football contest. So what does that do? That leaves them with 2 wins for their 2 victories this year against New Mexico and against Eastern Michigan.
No, that's Central Michigan, Mark.
Oh, pardon me, Central Michigan.
That's Central Michigan. Now,
Okay.
now we're talking. Now we're talking really. Yeah. So don't get that.
Yeah, now we move way up in class, huh?
Yes. So.
Well, I think they get exposed here, Greg. I really, truly do. Sharon Moore is going to be out. This is the last game of his suspensions.
I don't even know who that guy is on the sidelines. He looks like a guy you meet in a bar somewhere.
I don't know.
The guy who they have as the acting head coach.
Yeah, I don't know. But I think it ends at a place like Nebraska here. Matt Rule's getting his stuff together there in Nebraska. They're doing a lot of things they haven't done before in the past. And we talked repeatedly about how good he is in years 2 and 3 with his college football programs. That's right where he's at here, locked in right now. I think this is a big Nebraska win coming up here in this football game. I like them real well in this game. I think they're going to pull the rug out of Michigan.
Yeah, and I think if it happens, I think because of all of these major trends, I don't think it's going to be easy. I think it's going to be one of those situations where they're going to win like fourth quarter, last drive. Somebody makes like a defensive stop with the ball at the 5-yard line in Nebraska. So because I know as a Jet fan, when you have a lot of losing and you go through all this losing, it does when you come out of it, nothing's easy. You have to like crawl out of it, and you have to sweat out of it, and you have to be put through hell out of it, watching your team have to make the big plays to get over the hump. And that's what I can see in this game. So yeah, because these types of trends, this was the old Nebraska, and this is what has to be put to bed. All of these trends we're talking about.
Tony.
And that's really, in truth, what they hired him for, was to put this bad football history behind them. That's exactly what they did.
All right. Now, what we want to do is, I think even though it's still early, we've had an opportunity to take a look at some football. And I think this makes things a lot easier, of course, when we want to take a look at some futures. So let's take a look at some, what I think are national championship value futures. Okay. And we're going to start right here in this section, right here with these two teams at the top, Texas A&M and Oklahoma. You have the and you and I, we talked a lot about Texas A&M the last couple of years. They did not come through for us last year, and we know how many times Texas A&M has been looked at as a serious contender, top 25 team preseason, and then the regular season comes and they always let their fan base down. They let the pollsters down, and it's on to next season. But the win at Notre Dame has to mean something. The win at Notre Dame has to mean that this is different. And I believe it is. And they've got a very exciting young quarterback now. I'm actually surprised that their defense isn't as good as you would think it would be, because that's really where Texas A&M has been more of that's more of their mantra is more defense and special teams. But no, they're an offensive team more than anything right now. And then throw in the fact that you've got the other team right next to them, Oklahoma, who we talked about before, who has also a very legitimate quarterback who's right now one of the leaders for the Heisman in John Mateer. So I think, considering we know how many big games both Texas A&M and Oklahoma are going to be playing, I think it makes a lot of sense to take both teams and say, hey, I just need one of them to come through in the SEC and have a big year and maybe be that team that can get to the Final Four, the championship game, and win it all. So I think 22 and 25-1 is not that bad.
Well, it is not that bad, Greg, because they're not going to play one another. So neither one's going to handle
even
another.
Better. Maybe they'll be in the championship game then.
Yeah. Neither one will handle a loss. So maybe they both arrive at the championship game, and you know what happens when you win a Big 12 championship game, you're in the playoffs. So I think that's an excellent point on your part. Two quality football programs. I'm quite high on Texas Tech, although I did in our coffee club this morning, I was talking about some coaches in the hot seat, and I was a little bit stunned that Dan Walken, who I really, really admire as an author, he's now employed with Sports Yahoo. He used to be with USA Today, and he made a list of coaches in the hot seat, and he put Joey McGuire from Texas Tech on that list.
Huh.
I was a little bit taken aback by that, just given the fact that, they've gotten off to this onslaught start that they've had, and they've gone out and brought the best players money can buy to Texas Tech. So,
well, what do you think about them? I mean, 60-1 for Texas Tech is a monster number, and they're going to be playing Utah, of course, on Saturday, which is going to be a major game in the Big 12. But that is a big number, 60-1.
Well, they win that game, Greg. Go down their schedule, okay, and look at them. They're going to be favored at Houston. They're going to be favored against Kansas. They're probably be pick 'em or so against Arizona State. Favored at home to Oak State. You don't know what happens at Kansas State. They're beginning to unravel. BYU, they're likely favored against. Central Florida, they're favored against. And West Virginia, they could be favored at West Virginia. They could end up being favored in every football game. If they get past Utah, there'll be a newfound love for Texas Tech if they win this game this week.
Yeah, I think the trick is going to be whether or not two teams can come out of the Big 12. So just in case you don't win the championship, can the championship loser, can they find a way to the playoffs? I think it's possible this year. I think they're a better conference overall than they were last year. But yeah, that's a team definitely that really needs to show that they can do that, especially on the road at Utah. They've never played in Utah ever. And that is something that is not easy to do. Here's a couple of interesting teams at 50-1 because, it's still too early because we still don't know about USC. They've passed every test so far, but they haven't played anybody so far. But at least they're annihilating teams. And next week is going to be the big week for them. They're at Illinois. And then we're going to find out for real whether USC, but I do wonder if they beat Illinois, would you like if somebody, let's say somebody was interested in USC and they said, yeah, you know what, I like USC. I think they have a chance. And I love the fact that 50-1. What would you recommend? Would you say that you're better off waiting to see if they beat Illinois? Because even if they do, that number, like, where do you think it would drop? Do you think it would drop so far down that you're getting no more value? Or do you think it's still, because they're 50-1, that even beating Illinois, the number will still be big enough and it's worth your while to wait and see in 2 weeks?
Well, there's a lot of love for Southern Cal out there right now because they're really, really piling the stats on. Coming out of nowhere, and they become one of these very, very impressive stat teams. But they're going to have to go on the road and win at Notre Dame and Oregon. I don't know.
And Illinois. Wow.
And Illinois. That's three really, really tough roads to hoe for that football team. Okay. So if they do win this week, I think you have to be on a consideration list. It's like this. It's like you could have bought Amazon when it first started, and then you didn't, and now all of a sudden they're hot and they're promising, and you wish you would have. It could be the same case with Southern Cal. You could have bought them when you got a price here right now, but going in that they do have some hurdles they have to get over. Before
we move on, David wants to know what we think about the kickoff time, because it's going to be 11 Eastern. And you get and what I have noticed so far, and I haven't done the actual research, but just from my memory, and we just said it with Texas Tech going to Utah for the first time. It does seem, and we saw it last week, and I know it's Boston College, but Boston College, heavy favorite. They go to Stanford last week, and they can't beat Stanford. There are these situations where these teams are not used to going to the West Coast and playing, and now on top of it, they have to play this game at this type of time situation, 11 o'clock Eastern time, instead of whatever it would be normally, a couple hours difference. That is going to be, I think, it's going to be, and look, it's a big spread. I think it's like 18.5 though.
It's a big spread. Right. But, and it's a good observation, given the fact that they are playing at 11 PM. What's worse, for a West Coast team to have to play at noon, or an East Coast team to have to start a game at 11 PM? Probably you can argue till the cows come home on both sides of that football game, but it will definitely benefit Southern Cal in the football game.
Yeah, I'm going to find out on Saturday, because one of my top picks is facing that situation. We'll get into that in just a little bit. Okay, and then if there are any others. Oh, I wanted to throw in Clemson, because now all of a sudden they're 50-1. And once again, their best player hasn't played. So they're going to get Antonio Williams back in the next week or two. And I think there was a bye this week after Syracuse. So maybe they're going to probably look at that and say, let's give him these extra couple of weeks. We'll beat Syracuse without him, or else they better. And then we'll get Antonio Williams back, and we'll make a run. We'll win the ACC, and we'll be the team that everybody thought we'd be when the season began. And I think it's worth that. I kind of like Clemson as a decent value play, only because of that, because they haven't been playing with their best player yet.
That's a real good point. Overwhelmingly picked to win the ACC, stubbed their toe. Dabo Swinney is mad as all get out. I'm sure you're going to probably maybe see this team run the table to go out. And if they run the table, they're going to be in the playoffs. And that could end up making that ticket look real live at that particular point. I saw on the screen Indiana and Illinois. What were the two prices there, Greg?
Indiana is 90-1,
yes,
and Illinois is 100-1.
Wow.
Yes, that's pretty big considering the winner of this game is going to have a really good chance to be a Big Ten sleeper for the championship.
And the winner of this game gets chopped down to probably 50-1. And they're going to have a good quality football team here as well. So, I would throw maybe a couple little shekels on both of these teams here. And you're going to be left with one of them that can play some football. Remember, Illinois was really loaded with returning production this year. And Brett Bielema has been a really, really good coach, especially on the road where you have to win football games. If he can get out of Indiana alive, I think they're going to be a threat in the Big Ten.
And as far as the conference, there are some conference plays that I think are worth looking at. First of all, well, let me ask you, because I saw Florida State was, I think, 60-1. Here they're 7-1. Do you believe in Florida State? I know it's early. They've had one win. They haven't played anybody else. They'll play clubs. They'll play Miami in a couple of weeks. I kind of do because of the coaching staff. They've got two really good coaches on the staff, and they have a veteran quarterback who loves playing in this system. I don't like him at 10-1 or 20-1, but at 60-1 or maybe 7-1 to win the ACC, I think they're a possibility.
Yeah, for a price, they are a possibility. I don't know how legit they really, truly are. They feel they are. And, they no more have injury issues like they had on that unfaithful year when they ran the gamut and ended up not making the football playoff championship game. But they pulled a surprise in Alabama. They beat nobody. Then you got Kent State coming up here. That'll be another whitewash win. Are they worth a look? Yeah, they're going to host Miami of Florida. That's favorable for them. But the key game for them will be indeed when they go to Clemson. Can they get in and out of Clemson alive? I don't think they can.
Okay. Meanwhile, let's see. AAC, I'm going to throw out a couple of good value plays right here, both East Carolina and Army. Army finally showed me what I needed to see. And they got the quarterback came in for them in their win against Kansas State and showed me something. And that was important because they lost one of the greatest quarterbacks they've ever had. And also with East Carolina, really love the job that this new head coach has done. Took over the program midseason last season, and they have been doing nothing but win. I think they had a competitive loss against North Carolina State to start the season. They have a legitimate quarterback, and 15-1 is not a bad price. I even liked them a little bit against BYU this week because BYU's true freshman quarterback going on the road for the first time. So yeah, I think we'll find out a lot about East Carolina. So as far as maybe a sleeper in the AAC, I would look at those two teams. And this is going to be a fun AAC championship run because all of these teams, all 8 of these teams, whenever they play each other, should be a lot of fun to watch this season.
Yeah, they're going to have to go up against both Tulane and Memphis. That'll be their two biggest tests. But you mentioned the coach. I think his name is Blake Harrell. They've won. They closed out real strong last year, and they're opening up real strong again this year. I think they are somebody under the radar that needs to be watched. And you can never discount an Army football program here, largely because of their coach. They've been there before, and they've done that. I agree with you. I think you got value on both of these sides, Army and East Carolina.
Okay, let's see. I still think Cincinnati is and also Houston. We're big Willie Fritz fans, and maybe getting Weigman, the quarterback who failed out of A&M and has been so far so good for Houston. Fritz has been there now for a few years, so I think maybe this could be. I think it is clearly his best team. So I think Houston could be a nice little sleeper in the Big 12 at 19-1.
You can argue that the Big 12 is, for all intents and purposes, wide open.
Oh yeah,
there's nobody a clear-cut favorite in that conference. You could talk, till the cows come home about Texas Tech, Arizona State. I think is coming back to the pack, but Houston, they got out this really strong 3-0 start here to begin the football season. They'll be 4-0 after they come back from Oregon State. The big game will be Texas Tech the week after when they host them. But like you mentioned, we're both big Willie Fritz fans, and Willie always seems to pull the rug out on people that maybe don't expect it, perhaps per se, but they have to be worth a look because I think this conference, as I said, is wide open.
And the Big Ten, we've talked about that a bit already. USC is 16-1, Illinois is 25-1, and Indiana is 28-1. And if you're into Nebraska and you think they're going to beat Michigan, then 35-1 is something to look at. So I think there's a potential plays there too, because nobody knows yet what to make of any of these teams yet. We'll find out next week when Oregon travels to Penn State to play Penn State. That is going to be a monster game. We'll find out about both of those teams. We know nothing about them other than they have beat up on pansies. So we're now going to find out exactly what's going to happen. Ohio State, we know a little bit about because of the matchup with Texas, but that game didn't do anything to make anybody feel like either team was invincible. So I think there is an opportunity for an Illinois, an Indiana, a USC, or maybe even a Nebraska to kind of make waves and maybe surprise this season.
Well, you go up and down the schedules of those two teams, Greg, and take a look at, you got the three powerhouses in the conference, Ohio State, Oregon, and Penn State. Look at their schedule and see who they don't play. Indiana only has, of that triumvirate there, they got Penn State and Oregon, so they're missing Ohio State in that contest here. Illinois, I should say. Let me see what they've got. I don't know if it's any better for them. Ohio State. Yeah, Ohio State looks to be the only guy, the bruiser that Illinois has got if they get past Indiana here. They're not playing Penn State. They're not playing Oregon.
Yeah.
Looks like the path could be Illinois if they get out of Indiana this week.
And then taking a look to see if we see any others in here. I know there was, I do wonder about Utah State now with Bronco Mendenhall. They had a good loss at Texas A&M. Then they went out and they had a nice upset win over Air Force. So I would keep an eye on Utah State if you're looking for some value in the Mountain West, because we know, we saw it with Boise State week 1. They're just not the same team that they were last year.
No, they're not. They're beatable, and Bronco Mendenhall's got all that experience. Why not? I mean, I think that conference is rather not wide open, but maybe a little looser than it was last year for sure.
And then the SEC, this is where there are some really good long shots. Okay. And that includes Missouri and Vanderbilt.
Greg, you're talking about horses on Breeders' Cup Day. Okay.
Oh, yeah. And Missouri is a team that we haven't talked a lot about yet, but I still, they were one of my sleepers. And now for sure, I love them. I just love what they've done so far this season. They are everything. They're doing so much better than I thought they were going to be. I mean, Prabula has just worked like a charm at quarterback. I love the running back, Ahmad Hardy. He was a phenomenal freshman running back at Louisiana Monroe. Nobody had any idea who he was. And he is off to a great start with Missouri. And I think people undervalue Drinkwitz. He is a really good coach, and he's proving it this year, maybe better than ever. So keep an eye on Missouri. I think they're a legitimate contender at 30-1. And you, of course, know how I feel about Vanderbilt sitting there at 75-1.
Well, the question I'm going to ask you is, where does Missouri stub their toe? And they will. They're a really, really nice football team, but somewhere along out of the woods, somebody's going to end up pulling a rug out on them, and we'll see how they react after that. That question I'm going to ask you is could that be South Carolina this week, a team that so much more was expected from? And now they're a healthy favorite over South Carolina, a football program here. Missouri still got to go to Auburn, which won't be a gift. They got to go to Oklahoma, and they got to go to Arkansas. So they got a pretty tough trek. Going to host Alabama here as well. So I'm just saying, I think it's a very, very dangerous spot for Missouri this week when they host South Carolina.
I think the good thing is that as far as that matchup, if you look at it, Missouri has, even though they lost last year, they did cover, and they've kind of been the better team in the series. Now, Sellers had a huge year last year, and so this was one of the big wins they had, and they were the favorite in the game, South Carolina. But at this point, I haven't heard anything about Sellers playing. And if the line, what is the latest on the line right now? Because I think that tells us everything on what Vegas thinks Sellers is going to play.
In fact, I just put that out as a play on my service, South Carolina. Let me see what I put it out at.
Because it started out at 13. And
I think it's 9.5.
See, to me, 9.5 leads me to believe that they're not sure.
Well, there's been a lot of support for South Carolina here, obviously.
Yeah. But I think some of that is, I think earlier in the week, most people thought Sellers had no chance of playing. Then Beamer said the only way that a player of mine can play on Saturday, he has to practice by Wednesday. Sellers practiced a little bit on Wednesday. Then the line came down to 10. But I don't think anybody knows if Sellers is going to still play. He might have just practiced just so he had to practice, because if I don't practice, I can't play. So I got to get out there and practice. But he may not be ready. He might have just at least given himself a chance to be available, but we don't know.
No, we don't know. What if he felt hurt after practice, sore, and couldn't, wasn't the same. The practice meant nothing other than a discovery practice.
Yep.
But as you said, because he practiced, it's a major reason why that line did come down.
Yeah, Missouri 4th in total offense, 5th in total defense. Running back Ahmad Hardy ranks 2nd in rushing yards a game. South Carolina is 118th in total offense this year, and most of that is with Sellers. So that's the reason I'm still sticking with Missouri, because you were talking about that schedule, Mark. That schedule is an SEC schedule, up and down. They got murderer's row. So they're going to lose a few games, and they can lose 2 games and still go to the playoffs. So I'm not really too worried about that. But the question, of course, can they win the SEC based on that number we're going over right now, which is at 30-1. And I just say, you know what? I think they have as good a chance as anybody. David wanted to know about Horn, but just so you know, Horn was not the starting quarterback. He was battling with Bo Prabula, the Penn State transfer, and Prabula I thought was going to win the job anyway. Horn out for the season, and Prabula has been doing fantastic. So I think they're fine.
That's David K. from the Coffee Club, who's in touch with us regularly from Henderson, Nevada, and he's really got a good feel about college football. I have to say that.
Okay. And then I think we're done here. Let's now go to, I just want to throw in the Heisman players, the numbers here. And check this out. The beginning of the season, Arch Manning was the favorite. Now look at him, 35-1.
And guess who I just played, Greg?
Arch Manning.
Arch Manning.
He has one game, and you from 8-1 or 9-1 to 35-1. He's going to have 5 big games, 6-7 big games left the rest of the season to make his mark.
You see, when the Heisman Trophy race is in full gear, you'll see players positioning in the top 5, in and out all season long. They'll drop out, maybe they'll inch their way back in. But take a look at the Texas football schedule here. Moving forward here, they're going to be favored in every game they play. If they win every game that they play, it's going to be largely because of Arch Manning, who's come around. He just had a slow start, but he's got the DNA in him. And there's a lot of value here right now at this price, especially as opposed to quarterbacks that are priced shorter than he is at this particular point.
Yeah, all he has to do is in the game that everybody's going to watch against Oklahoma. Everybody in college football, every college football fan is going to watch Texas, Oklahoma on that Saturday in October. And he goes out there and has a monster game. He's going to be back to being the favorite again to win the Heisman.
All he has to do is win the game, really, in truth, Greg. How can you not mention Arch Manning if Texas goes unbeaten the rest of the way and only loses just their opening game? He's going to be in the running for sure.
Yeah, right now it is wide open. I don't think they have any idea. To have John Mateer and Carson Beck, okay, they're off to nice starts, but Heisman? We got a long way to go before a John Mateer or Carson Beck gets a Heisman. So that means nobody knows. Somebody has to be favored, I guess, which means that there's a lot of opportunity out there to grab a player.
There sure is.
Haynes King is getting 35-1. He is a really fun winning. He's already made 2 big game-winning drives at the end of games to win games against Colorado and Clemson. There's Prabula at 45-1. There's my boy Diego at 60-1. So there's my boy Hart at 70-1. So there's some other really big players that, including Arch, that are getting a lot of value here. that you want to be keeping an eye on. And even Drew Aller, the quarterback of Penn State, he's got the matchup against Oregon next week, which is going to give him the opportunity at 25-1 to make noise. All right. And before we get out of here, let's talk about, there are just a couple of double-digit upsets that I'm going to be playing this week. I'm not really jumping out there to put big money on them, but there are games. There's always games. One of them's tonight, and that's because I'm just so surprised that Oklahoma State looks like Oklahoma State from last year. I haven't seen anything from Oklahoma State this year that leads me to believe they're any better than last year's team. I like the direction that Tulsa, their new coach, I think he's going to turn the program around. I'm not saying Tulsa is going to be a top AAC team this year, but I can see Tulsa winning a game at some point and surprising people. And this would be a perfect spot for it, because who would have thought Tulsa would be an 11-point dog at Oklahoma State? I think that says everything right there, Mark.
Well, it does. I don't know what they put in the Kool-Aid at Oklahoma State the past 2 years, but my goodness, they better get somebody in there to check out the water there. I don't know what happened to this program. Even Ollie Gordon, who was a premier running back at Oklahoma State, went into his senior season, and he was in the Heisman Trophy talk. Completely shut down, ineffective. Now he's with the Miami Dolphins, and he's a horse. He's a National Football League running back who's going to make a career in the National Football League. I don't know if it's a Gundy thing that's going on there, or if the talent just up and outed and went somewhere else. But Oklahoma State is really, really the biggest question mark in college football for me.
Well, this line was 13.5 on Monday, and it's now down to 10. So it's barely meeting my criteria of being a double-digit money line play. And that's the reason why I like them. I think, go ahead, take Tulsa. It's more says about Oklahoma State, of course, than it does about Tulsa. And then the other double-digit play is going to be the team that you took last week in the upset of Pittsburgh, and that's West Virginia. As much as I like Kansas, and we both like Kansas, we both like the coach, and Daniels is a really fun quarterback to watch. But when was the last time you saw, a Rich Rodriguez coach team that can play defense?
They've really stepped it up there. I do a show with Terry Bowden, who used to be the head coach there, and a real nice guy, and kind of get an insight and a feel from him about what's going on with the program. And his feeling is this week that I said, Coach, is there a letdown in order here? He says, no, I don't think so. He says, I think that momentum carries forward with the football program. Especially when you get into conference games in a game you're not supposed to win. So I think West Virginia will, at least, if not take home the money, they could be on your playlist on a money line list.
All right, Mark, last thing is give us a pick. You got one? You give us something, both NFL, college football, one or the other. Give us whatever you want to give us here.
Well, I think it's a rather attractive college football card this week. It was stark naked last week. It was really, really slim pickings, and I think it grew better this week only because it had to. But I'm going to say I'm going to go out with Auburn to upset Oklahoma this week. We talked about it earlier on in the show. The Southeast Conference dog aspect of it. Hugh Freeze, the underdog aspect of this football game here. This is a game that makes Auburn a contender, a player this year. And Oklahoma, I think, right now, is playing with a little bit of false money, per se, if you will, out of what's happened the last couple of games here. I think Auburn may be more for real, and I think their running game will ground Oklahoma down. Give me Auburn plus the points. Yeah,
and again, I think a great story that would be for Jackson Arnold to go back to Oklahoma and pull it off. So, you're always looking. That's the one thing too when you're making picks and handicapping each week. Sometimes you don't know. Sort of like when if we talked about taking the Jets last week against Buffalo. Sometimes you don't know if a team's going to show up. Well, what we do know is that Auburn and Jackson Arnold will show up.
Yes.
Because of the situation at hand. And that makes you feel good about investing your money with a team when you know that, to be sure. This is going to be we were talking about before about Michigan State going West Coast to East Coast. And this is the only thing that I'm concerned with in my top pick this week is UNLV going to play Miami of Ohio in the East Coast at 12 o'clock. They're a 2.5-point favorite, but the fact is that UNLV is just a better team than Miami of Ohio. Do I think that they are like the team they were last year? No, I think they're taking a step down, but so is Miami. And I just think that the only thing Miami has going for them is that they're at home. Maybe will that do anything for them? So I feel real good though about Dan Mullen knows how to coach. He's off to a nice start. They've won the games they've needed to win, and Miami has not looked real good in the games that they played. They have played really good teams though. They played teams from the Big Ten, so this will be a help. But this was what really sold it for me when it was all said and done, Mark. Check this out. UNLV is 20-1 against the spread on the road in non-conference play. And they've covered 16 straight since 2017.
Wow, they've been at the craps table holding those dice for a long time, Greg.
Yes. And on the flip side, get this. Miami of Ohio is 4-25 straight up versus FBS non-conference teams the last 10 years.
When you open up that weekend coffee club tomorrow, you just might see that UNLV stat in that coffee club tomorrow. That's a great one.
Hey, that's where I got it from.
There you go.
All right, Mark, great to have you on as usual. It's good to have Jim back. The three of us together doing this all season is a lot of fun considering we're partners here at Proline TV. So we'll do this again, of course, next Friday. Obviously, I'll see you with Jim on Thursday on the Playbook ATS podcast at 1 o'clock Eastern. And in the meanwhile, before you close, again, you've got the coffee club out there. Why don't you let the viewers know a little bit about it if they have no idea what you're talking about?
Well, the coffee club is something that I send every day to anybody that's a subscriber, whether it's a publication or my service. They get the coffee club free in their inbox every day, weekend edition and 5 other days, a free complimentary issue of it. And there's just filled with lots of stats and facts and stuff we talk about here. I also need to mention that the Playbook Midweek Alert makes its debut this week. And we're pretty proud of this midweek alert here. A lot of great stats and information in there. A lot of handicapping from that particular point of view, statistically, not just fundamentally, not just technically, not just who do you like and things like that. There's a lot of good, solid handicapping information in the midweek alert, and that debuts this week as well. You can check it out all online at playbooksports.com.
All right, Mark, have a great weekend. Have a prosperous weekend, and I look forward to talking to you again next week.
Likewise, Greg, be well, stay safe, and let's hope the ball bounces our way this week.